But thanks for joining. So this is kind of our first iteration here of Copy.ai office hours. The whole point here is like we're just going to build in public, show everybody how this is done, and hopefully you can get some ideas of some of the use cases and how you would accomplish them. We'll also share all the workflows that we're building during this session with everybody, so you can actually use them directly. All right. So the whole purpose of office hours here is around workflows. So today's session is around lead enrichment specifically. So we're going to build a few different workflows that you'll be able to actually take and then use in your day-to-day. So the whole idea is that, let's say somebody like fills out a form or comes to your site and you want to understand who they are. First thing, depending on how much information you ask, you might need to source some information. So say like in a form, you're probably not going to ask them, like their LinkedIn URL. It's usually going to be like name, maybe company name, maybe email. So the first workflow that we're going to build is actually just going to take an email and it's going to extract what their name would be and extract their company name. So I'm just going to say, given an email in 2 separate steps, reason through what their name is and what their company name is. So this is a workflow. This prompt, best practices for prompting, for generating a workflow, and think of a workflow as a process that you would want to run. So this is like a process that would apply every single time, like a sign up comes in, every single time I just have an email of somebody who I want to reach out to. First, I just want to understand maybe like what their name is and what their company name is. Typically, you can infer that from the email. A lot of people are like first name dot last name at company.com or whatever. This is going to make sense in a second, because then what we're going to do is we're going to take their name and their company name, and then the next workflow that we're going to build here is we're actually going to search the web and try to find their LinkedIn URL. And then with that LinkedIn URL, what we're going to do is we're actually going to scrape information from their LinkedIn profile and start to understand who they are and some things about them. So by the end of the hour here, just given an email, we're going to start to learn some really cool things. And every single workflow that we build here, again, is a process that can be run at any scale. So you'll be able to plug this directly in to your processes. And this is what we do today. And I can even show some examples there if that would be useful for folks. But you can see here, the input is just the email. The first step extracts the name, and the second step extracts the company, right? So I can test this. And typically when you build a workflow, you'll notice that we've kind of put the process together. It's always good just to do kind of a quick once over. Make sure that like the inputs make sense, that like our AI like understood the request. So in this case, the input is the email, so it looks like it got that. The second step is to extract the name. And I want these as separate outputs because I want to be able to map these independently. So I just want like one step is just dedicated to extracting the name. When we respond back with this workflow, like as part of a process, say you want to integrate this in the Salesforce, the name will actually be an independent field if I do it this way, as opposed to if I tried to do it in one step. Like it would do it right, but then they're just going to be together in one process. So if I wanted to map the name to like the name field within Salesforce or HubSpot, and the company name to the company name field within Salesforce or HubSpot, I'd want these to be separate outputs. So that's a good way to think about when you're building some of these workflows. Like what bits of data do you want to be independent of one another? Make those a separate step. So we also pick the model that this step will use, and we write the prompts based on what your initial input was. So in this case, it's saying extract the person's name from the email and return just the name, nothing else, right? That looks right. This one says extract the company name from the email and return the company name, nothing else. So I'm just going to test this. I'm going to say, just put in like a fake email. I'm going to say like Steve Johnson at Nike.com. I just want to see if this is making sense. So it looks like it is, right? So it's getting the name, and it's getting the company. Let's try this with a real one. Say Robert.Mosley at Copy.ai. Cool, perfect, nailed it. So Robert Mosley, and the company, you'll notice that it knows that our company name is actually Copy.ai, not just Copy, where in the other example, it was just Nike. All right, so now very first step of kind of lead enrichment here is just taking that email and extracting information. Sometimes people will only put in like their first name in like these like submission forms. For us, when people sign up for Copy AI, we actually don't ask for a name at all. So this is what we actually do. So we run a workflow almost exactly like this one that just takes the email that somebody signed up with and just extracts like what's their name, what's their company name. So I'm going to publish this one. We will come back to that. I'm going to open up a new tab here, and then we're going to build another workflow. So this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, given a name and a company name, search the web for the person's LinkedIn address, LinkedIn, let's say LinkedIn URL. So in this case, we have the name, the company name from this one. The way I'm thinking about this now is I want to say, given that name and that company name, search the web for that person's LinkedIn URL. And then now I want a step that just extracts the URL from that list. If you think about the search step, what this is going to do, it's actually going to return like a list of search results, right? So then I need to be able to have a step that parses through those results and just gets at the bit of information that I want, which is their LinkedIn URL. So I'm going to send this one. And then now our workflow builder is going to interpret these, and it's going to come back and build a workflow. It takes a minute. If you build something really complex, it can take even longer. But that just takes a minute, and once that's ready, you'll be able to test and do everything you need there. The other thing is, once it's built, you'll see this on button. This means it's published, so you can run this. Every workflow has a form, right? So you could actually, if this was a tool that you wanted to give to others on the team, you could actually just give them a link to this form. They don't even have to have access to Copy AI. They could just put in an email and it'll extract this. Or we could start to chain these together where they could put in an email and all of a sudden they're going to get a bunch of information about the person who owns that email. All right, so this one, the input is name and the company name. The web search is like, think of this as just like, this is the search query. It's name, company name. This would be replaced with whatever the inputs are for name and company name, and then LinkedIn. And then it's going to take these results. So this purple right here, this represents where it says web search. It represents the output from this step. Then it says extract the LinkedIn URL from the web search results, return just the URL, nothing else. So I'm actually going to edit this prompt a little bit because I'm not sure it's going to work exactly how we want it. But first I'm going to test it. So I'm just going to put in Robert Mosley and Copy.ai, which was the output from the last run that I had here. And let's see if I can get my LinkedIn URL. So this testing phase is super important. Again, like AI wrote the prompts for AI, so it's kind of like circular, a little bit meta here, but it usually does a pretty good job. It's usually directionally accurate, but I also find that we are going to have to edit the prompts most of the time, especially when we're writing content, right? Okay, so this worked. Like this is, if I click on this, there I am. This one worked. I still don't feel super good about it. I think that this step, I also want to pass in the name. So I'm going to say extract the LinkedIn URL from the web search results that belongs to, and I'm going to type a hashtag here, and it's going to show all the information that I can pass into the prompts for this step. So this would include the data that gets passed into the workflow as inputs, also the outputs from previous steps, and then anything in Infobase. So we'll talk about Infobase coming up, but this is information that you can load into Copy AI that like may not exist on the web. That's like information about you, information about your company, that you can pass into prompts to do various things. Later on, what we're going to do is we're actually going to pass in some information about Copy AI, and in the next step, we're going to use that to actually come up with some use cases for this person based on the information there. So what I want to update the prompt to, because you'll notice here, let me save this real quick. You'll notice that there's a bunch of stuff here, right? Like this is just the raw search results. And you can see there's a bunch of URLs in here. So it did get my LinkedIn, but I'm not sure if it would do that every single time. So this is the whole rationale for updating this. It belongs to name who works at, I'm going to put company name and return just the URL, nothing else. Now I think this is a little bit more steady. I'm just going to test this one more time, make sure I didn't break it, and it's still going to extract my LinkedIn URL. And I hope you guys are following along too. I hope you're trying to build this yourselves and test it. Okay, so it's still getting it, which was good. So I didn't break it, and hopefully I made it better. The instructions are a bit clearer. Keep in mind too, unless you pass information from previous steps and inputs and other things into into this particular step or whatever other future step, it's not aware of it. Each step in a workflow isn't aware of actually what's going on previously unless you pass in data from that step. And this is where using these hashtags in the prompts become important. Our builder does a pretty good job of doing this sort of thing, but it's always good to make sure that it's coherent. I like to use what's called the sheet of paper test on this. If I gave this instruction to a colleague written down on a sheet of paper and they couldn't come back to me with any questions or anything like that, would I expect that they would complete the task without needing to come back to me and they would be accurate? And so now I think that this probably passes that sheet of paper test. Hey, here's the web search results. Write that on this sheet of paper. Extract a LinkedIn URL from the web search results that belongs to this person who works at this company name, and return just the URL, nothing else. So it seems to be doing that. I'm going to publish this one. So a quick note on publishing. So publishing makes it live. This means that I can now integrate this. This means that I can share that form and anybody can use it. I can run it here. I can upload a CSV and run it manually in bulk, right? So if I have a bunch of names and company names, which is exactly the sort of thing that you would get, say from a webinar attendee list, such as we'll get at the end of this one, I could upload that CSV and map those columns and just run this in bulk and then export that and upload that to any system. So this is another way that you can use a workflow to run actions in bulk without actually having to integrate it directly into a system, which you can do. I'll talk about integrations in a little bit. So the next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to create another workflow. So let me open up another tab. So remember, we started with a name, or we start with an email, and we get name, and we get company name, and then we take that name and company name. We're going to chain that together with this workflow to get the LinkedIn URL. And then what we want to do is say, given a LinkedIn URL, let's see, scrape the information from their profile and summarize it as separate steps for the following outputs. So I'm just going to list the sort of things that I would want to get from somebody's LinkedIn URL. So I want their current title, list of previous companies where they have worked. Let's say a paragraph description about their career progression. Let's say education details such as degree earned and school attended. Technical skills or certifications, software they work with that they've mentioned on their profile, Okay, now I'm going to ask, now I'm not, in this step, I'm not going to actually extract stuff. I'm going to actually ask it to reason. This is a really powerful thing with AI, is it can actually think. And in my opinion, like that's what's most important about this sort of thing, is it can actually think. So you want to put that to action. So I'm going to say, given what they do, list 5 to 10 responsibilities that they have in their day-to-day job. Right. So this is just all the information from LinkedIn. What do they actually do? Summarize any recent posts they've made and what they typically talk about. Let's see, what else would be useful here? Summarize any recent posts they've made, what they typically talk about. How about like summarize any personal interests mentioned outside of their work. Yeah, sometimes people will post about running a marathon or some cause or volunteering or something like that. Any personal interests mentioned outside of their work. And finally, let's hypothesize 5 ways that this person could use Copy.ai. All right, so I'm going to submit that one. This one's probably going to take a while to build. And instead of making you all wait there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one. So this workflow, what I want to do is I actually want to start to understand anything that's going on with their company that I might need to know about. So I'll say, given a company name, search the web for information about that company and build a list of the following. Let's say competitors, company size, number of employees, industry. Next, search the web for recent news about that company and summarize it as 2 buckets: good news and challenging news. And then finally, generate a list of like 5 to 10 industry terms that would be relevant for this company. The reason I want to do this one is because if we actually take this information and we want to use it to say, do outbound, personalized outbound at scale, like I want to be able to like speak their language, right? So if it's a retailer, I want to be able to like speak retail terminology. Or alternatively, if there's any meeting that happens with this person, I want to make sure that the sales rep is prepared to know like what this company does, have some industry terms. Oh, maybe definitions would be good, relevant for this company, along with definitions of those terms. Just prepare, like, so as I get into a meeting with this person, I know everything about them. So I'm going to start. Okay, actually, let's do one more thing. I'm going to say, instead of finally, I'm going to say next. I'm going to say finally, search the web for their most recent 10K report and extract the URL to it. Actually, I could probably take that one further step and actually summarize the 10K report, but I'll actually edit that to do it later. Looks like this one's still building because it was a pretty complex one, but this one should be done in a minute. All right, now this one. So basically what we're building so far is given an email, extract their name, their company name, then find their LinkedIn URL, Then when this one's done building, it'll be take their LinkedIn URL and do all that stuff that we want it to do. I'm actually going to make a copy of this just in case it does happen to fail and we can like run that again. All right, let's see. I'm just going to paste this in the editor. Do the same thing for this one. Looks like it's still going. Paste that there. All right, so this one's done now, it looks like. So let's see. So we got the input, which is the LinkedIn profile URL, and it scrapes it, extracts the title, previous companies. It's going to list them like this, it looks like. If I like this, awesome. If not, then I can change it. So I could say do this as like an array or do this as a ordered list or something like that. So this will also identify all the previous, extract a list of the companies, profile scape, as well as the years that they worked there. So company one, year range. Just gonna give it some more structure here because I do want to extract the years as well. So I'll save this action. That's the other thing too. Like if you make an edit to a prompt, click save action before you click away. Otherwise you'll kind of lose your work. You'll notice too that there's two prompts that we give you access to within the workflow. There's the instructions prompt. This is typically what you'd be used to like typing into chat or like into like chat GPT or whatever. And then there's the background prompt. This is kind of like, what do you want the AI, like what is the job of the AI? So like AI itself, these large language models, they can do a lot of different things, right? They can summarize information, they can translate content, they can write code, they can write poetry, like, but if you give it a job, what you're doing is you're saying like, all right, so of all those skills that you had said being like a jack of all trades, I want you to be like a master of this one. It actually does improve the output. So think of like, who at your company would be best at that and like model the background prompt based on that. Like usually the background prompts that we write are pretty good. Like in this case, you're a career progression summarizer who's skilled at analyzing someone's work and history, summarizing their career progression. Usually that's pretty good, but you can always play with this. It's especially important for like writing. So if you had like an email writer or a blog post writer, giving it some additional details there around their background, sometimes even like going like overboard and telling them like specifically about this person, like where they went to school or like what are things that they're interested in, that can all like change kind of the way that it writes. So it's pretty interesting. So education details, technical skills, software mentioned, further responsibilities, summarize posts, summarize interests, hypothesize use cases. Cool. So let's test this one. I'm going to just grab my LinkedIn URL from here and pass that one in. This will probably take a minute to run. So after you build a workflow, you do need to run it once. And so this will run the entire workflow and you'll have outputs for every single step. But once you have that, you can actually edit steps and test steps one at a time, which makes that iteration process much quicker. So I'll show that once this is done. While this is running in the background, let's go check out this company research one. So input, search for company info. You can also within search steps, so you'll notice there's a little icon here. You'll notice a bunch of different icons here. These represent different actions that the AI can take. So it's just search, right? So within a workflow, you can search. This little magnifying glass icon here means it's a search. You can actually change some of the settings around the search. Think of this as just the query. So I could like type this directly into Google and I would get back similar results. So basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to find information that I can use in subsequent steps. You could change the number of pages that you want to return, the search type, so you can search the entire internet, news articles, images, videos, locations, products, and then the time period, right? So for company info, I don't necessarily care, but for news, maybe I actually want to say like, let's do the past month. Let's going to summarize that news, generate industry terms, search for the 10K report, and then extract that 10K URL. So I'm going to test this one. I'm going to put in a different company. I'm going to put, let's try Tesla. All right, so here I am. This is my profile. This is just kind of like the raw profile. Extracts my current title, previous companies, career progression, education details, tech skills, software. So I worked at all software companies. That does make sense that it did get that. And for responsibilities, summarize posts. What I kind of talk about, summarize interests. Oh, I didn't not get. Oh, this one didn't run for some reason. Let's publish this. Let me make sure that one shows up in the table here. Yeah, so it is there. All right, let's try to run this again. But if I did just want to like retest a step, like let's say I wanted to summarize posts. Okay, let's edit this one. I'm gonna click this edit button just on this one. So I don't like around the post itself. So I'm gonna say your summary of the recent post should follow this structure. I'm just gonna say a couple of paragraphs with references to the post about overall what they seem to discuss when they post on LinkedIn. So I can save this and then go back to test, and then I can just click retest step, and I can see how my changes affected this step. So it's just going to run this step. So let's see what it comes back with. Well, maybe I need to publish there. Let's see. Let's edit that. Let's make sure. Oh, okay. So this is conflicting. That's why. Persons. I'm going to say most recent posts. I don't really care about the bulleted list, along with 2 to 3 main topics or themes. I'm just going to say along with the main topics or themes. So by saying like 2 to 3, it'll only do 2 to 3, right? Which is maybe sometimes what you want. But if I give it more room, if I'm not giving it like a number that I want or need, like maybe there's 10, right? Like by giving it 2 to 3, I might be missing some things. So let's save that. And now let's test it. Let's retest this step. All right, so much better. Cool. So now I understand. Remember, I just started with an email. Now I'm like kind of understanding this person, which is me, but in whatever case. Okay, so this one's not running. Yeah, let's actually run the entire thing over again. I think that's what I wanted to do. All right, let's go to the company research one. So here's Tesla. Competitors, company size, number of employees, industry, search for news. This is again just like from the last 30 days. So good news. Planning to build a $25,000 car at its factory near Berlin. Tesla may introduce a new $25,000 mystery model. Challenging news. Stock plummeted nearly 10%. So industry terms. So it's got that. Let's see. All right. So now I got their 10K report as well. What I really want to do with this is then I want to say, scrape the 10K report URL and summarize any mention of AI-based initiatives or challenges in the report. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say add a final step, or add 2 final steps to scrape, to 1, scrape the 10K URL, and 2, so I want to break these tasks up, right? So I want to take the 10K URL and I want to have a task that's just dedicated to scraping it. And just get the raw data from it. And then what I want is I want to add a summary step from that scrape. So it's a good way, like instead of asking to do like one task at a time or multiple tasks at the same time, it's always better to do these separate tasks independently. So first I do my research and then I summarize that research. So by typing this into the chat here, I'm actually editing the structure of the workflow itself. So it should add 2 steps here at the end to do what I asked it to do. And again, like just chat with the workflow as if you were chatting with somebody who was actually like building this in the background. In the background of this, we're going to select the best models for each task. We're going to write the prompts. We're going to put them in the right order. There may be changes that you make, which would actually impact other steps. This isn't a good example of it, but let's say I was like building a workflow to say like write a blog, and I just had one step that's like, hey, take in like this topic and this like other bit of information and turn it into a blog. And I was like, okay, well it's okay, but maybe I want to make it better. So then I might add a step at the beginning to say like first to write an outline, and then I want to write the blog. Right, that would like impact the existing blog writing steps. So like our workflow builder takes care of that for you. So here you can see it's scraping that. This is extracting the information there. Interesting, it actually picked Claude 1 for this one, which was kind of cool. All right, let's test this again. All right, so while that's running, let's go back here. I don't know why it doesn't like to show this use case right here. There might be some limit of only showing 10 steps in this. Well, in any case, what I can do, you can run workflows in multiple different ways. So I'm going to take the URL. I'm going to go to the run tab. I'm just going to run it here. Let's make sure. Okay, so that's there this time. So let's run that. When you run it in this run tab too, what's good about this, like when you run it in the test view, it's just for testing. It's like any run that you have, it's not gonna be stored anywhere. It's not gonna like trigger like an API. So this is just like running it just to test the quality. Any run that I have either in this run tab here or within the table view will actually be stored. Oh, and I clicked away. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so never mind. So it is running here. So it'll actually be stored so I can reference historical runs. And it'll also trigger like a webhook, meaning like I could upload a CSV of a bunch of different LinkedIn URLs, and I could like have another process mapped to the back end of this to add it into like Notion or something, or add it back into Salesforce or something like that. So let's see. So marketing, copy, and content. Marketing is under my purview, so that's good. Compelling sales enablement materials. That's also something that we do use Copy.ai for, which we'll actually cover in a future office hours. So if you do find this sort of thing valuable and you do want to join some of these, we're going to be covering all sorts of different use cases. right now we're starting at kind of like the very, very top of the funnel for some of like the sales use cases. You can get a preview too. If you go to Copy.ai, go to platform, and then AI Sales OS. This is kind of like our bundle of various workflows. We're going to be covering all of these in office hours. So right now we're kind of doing lead enrichment. You can see this goes way further. SDR OS. Once you start to do this enrichment, it feeds all this other stuff, like lead scoring. It feeds generating like outreach, outbound emails, use case ideation, all sorts of stuff. So we'll be covering this as well as the marketing OS workflows as well. So it's going to be a busy couple months here at Copy.ai, but if you want to follow along and learn, you definitely can do that. All right, where are we here? So we got that one, company research. So it's doing it. So it's extracting it. For you, you probably like don't care as much around maybe the AI related, maybe, I don't know what everybody does for work here or what their companies do, but you would definitely want to change this sort of thing to like extract information that's like relevant to you. So if you work for like a cybersecurity company, for instance, you'd want to extract security related challenges or security based initiatives, security related challenges faced by the company. If you're in logistics, you want to extract information around that. Then this can all go back in. So basically the way that we plug this back in, the outputs from all of these go directly back into Salesforce. And since it's sitting within there, within like the contact or like the lead object, we can start to use that to generate outbound emails. So I can reference the 10K report. The reason in this one why I wanted previous companies is we have a lot of customers who like load in their company list into Infobase, and within like say like an outbound email that you would want to send to set up a meeting, you could say like, oh hey, I saw you worked at Netlify, and they're a previous customer of ours. So I can actually compare this sort of thing against known information about your company that you have stored in Infobase to like make really, really good content, emails, whatever. So let's see, company research, got that one. Cool. I think that's what we wanted to cover for today. So thanks everybody for joining.